I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday.
We are kicking off AI month, a month of movies about various characters powered by artificial intelligence. And we are starting the month off with Real Steel, the Hugh Jackman movie about fighting robots.
I don't know about you, but when this movie came out, all my friends called it Rock'em Sock'em Robots the movie.
I did too. It's because it's robot boxing. It's Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and it felt like, why are they not calling it Rock'em Sock'em Robots? Did they not get the rights to the toy? But that's not why it's called Real Steel, because it's actually based off, as we were doing the research for this episode, it's kind of based off an old Twilight Zone episode.
Which was based off of a short story, all of which was written by Richard Matheson. Now, we have not had a chance to talk about Richard Matheson before on this show, I don't think.
I don't think so.
But we need to talk about Richard Matheson, one of the greatest sci-fi writers ever. He wrote many, many episodes of Twilight Zone, either original stories or stuff based off of his previous work, including Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, which is the William Shatner There's a Thing on the Wing episode.
Mm-hmm.
He is probably most famous for having written the book I Am Legend.
Yep.
Which has been adapted into 3 movies. Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price, which is so excellent, and if you've never seen it, stop what you're doing. Yes, stop this podcast, go watch it, come back to us. We can wait. And then The Omega Man with Charlton Heston, which was meh. And then I Am Legend with Will Smith, which could have been okay, I think, if they'd have kept the original ending, but it was deemed too sad and downer, and so they changed it to a dumber but happier ending.
And of course, he also wrote the story that the movie What Dreams May Come was based on, the Robin Williams movie about going to heaven.
Yeah, we talked about Roger Corman before on this show.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote 5 different Roger Corman movies. Most of them were based on, actually I think all 5 were based on Edgar Allan Poe stories. Including Pit and the Pendulum and The Raven, which are 2 of my favorite Roger Corman movies. He wrote Duel, which was Spielberg's first feature-length movie, maybe? I can't remember if Sugarland Express came before Duel or not, but, yeah, anyway. I mean, he even wrote a short story that an episode of Family Guy was based on. You know the episode of Family Guy where they try to figure out where the first dirty joke came from? He wrote the short story that episode is based on. Like, Richard Matheson has written what everything you've ever seen was based on. Including today's movie, Real Steel. We watched both Real Steel and the Twilight Zone episode that was the first filmed version of this story, called just Steel. It is not currently owned by Disney. But we watched it anyway because we wanted to see what the kind of original version of it was.
Yeah, you can watch the Twilight Zone episodes on Amazon Prime and Freevee. So if you don't want to pay, if you don't want to pay the prices of Amazon, you can just watch it for free on Freevee.
Yeah. It is, if you're looking for it, it is season 5, episode 2 of the original Twilight Zone. That is the Rod Serling Twilight Zone. Came out in 1963. And kind of before we get into what this was turned into in today's movie, I want to talk about what the story originally was, because it's kind of very short and very, short and sweet, I guess, question mark.
It's a short story. It was a half-an-hour episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yeah. And the Twilight Zone episode is almost exactly the short story just put on screen. They changed the timeline a little bit, but as far as the beats of the story, it's exactly the same. To take you through it real quick, the boxing with humans has been outlawed, and I want to give you a little bit of context here for those of you who, like the two of us, were not alive at the time that this Twilight Zone episode was filmed. Just the year before this episode came out, there was a famous incident where a televised, now remember this is 1962, so this is still early in television history, a live television, boxing match had ended with the death of one of the participants. Emil Griffith killed a man named Benny Perret. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, and I'm sorry for that. And there had also been earlier in 1963 a guy named Davy Moore had died after suffering a neck injury during a boxing match. And so there had been 2 major deaths related to professional boxing right as they had filmed this episode. And so it was big in the news of whether or not boxing was too dangerous and too deadly to be a legal sport.
Oh, wait till they get to mixed martial arts.
Yeah, but so one of the reasons why Serling and Matheson did this was because it was very big in the news of whether or not it looked like boxing would be outlawed. And in fact, they predicted within 5 years of the episode airing, it would be outlawed. As we know, that did not happen. But so the premise is that human boxers have been outlawed and replaced with these android boxers that look like humans. And they, a down on his luck former boxer gets hold of a very old, out-of-date android and is trying to have it in a prize fight to win money that he really needs. And one of the parts in the android breaks. That part is not manufactured anymore. There is no replacement for it. So him and his manager friend decide to dress up the boxer as an android and pretend that he is an android, put him in the ring for one fight just to win the money they desperately need. He gets the absolute crap kicked out of him because he is fighting a robot. He goes down in the first round. He barely survives. They don't make as much money as they were promised because the fight was not very interesting and it ended in the first round. But it is just enough money to pay off their debts and invest in a new android. And it proves that even though automation is coming for all of our jobs, humans are very resilient, and we will find a way to keep going, even in the face of, the oncoming robot AI menace.
I mean, and it's a story that has been, while not directly adapted, has been inspired of other things. I can just watching the original story, thinking of a Simpsons episode that happened like that, where that was the big thing of when Robot Fight League was a new thing on television. Bart gets a robot, and it's Homer dressed as the robot.
Yeah, it is. It was inspired by this same episode, almost. Inspired by the same story, almost certainly. It is listed as either I Annoyed Gruntbot or more commonly known as I Dopebot. Came out in 2004. Unsurprisingly, it's also been done as a Futurama episode, Raging Bender, where Leela helps Bender become a robot wrestler and finds out that the opposing robot wrestler Destructor is being remote controlled by Leela's old kung fu master Fnog. So yeah, I mean, they're all based on the same story, more or less. But the interesting thing, and what I kind of want everybody to notice if they're not familiar with the original story, as I wasn't until we did this, is that Matheson's original idea for this was the point of the story was robots are coming to take your jobs, It's the South Park thing. They're coming to take your jobs.
And we're still, I mean, we talked about this a few weeks back of now we're getting, I mean, we are a podcast talking about entertainment, and the entertainment industry is more and more embracing AI.
Yeah, I mean, right now, solidarity with the animation union, who is currently on strike still as we are recording this. We've got friends who are on the picket lines out there, and they are fighting against their union trying to use more and more AI.
And we just had the actor strike. Was it last year or the year before?
Yeah, I mean, recently SAG is still, and honestly, they're still having problems because the union leaders in SAG kind of, I mean, I'm not a member of SAG, so this is me looking from the outside, but to all of my friends in SAG, y'all might need some new union leaders, because I think your union leaders did you dirty. That I personally think that deal, the AI parts of that deal, not a good thing for y'all. But that's just my opinion as an outsider looking at that. I have my only skin in that game is as a fan and as someone with, friends who are union members, who I support fiercely, but that I think is worrisome for the future. It's kind of one of the reasons why we decided to do AI month. It's just it's so big in the news right now. But
it was so hard to whittle this down to just 5 movies.
Yeah, and we even had September has the extra week this year, so we even had an extra one, and there was a lot to choose from. But the thing I want to point out before we get into what the 2011 movie did with the story is that Richard Matheson and most of the adaptations of this, no matter how kind of loose they may be, as in with the, Simpsons Futurama stuff, really take the tactic of the resiliency of humans,
the power of the human spirit,
versus the encroaching machine automation of jobs, alienation from your job in the Marxist sense of that, perseverance of the human spirit and all that.
And these stories have been going on since the dawn of the industrial age.
Yeah.
They're over. Paul Bunyan is probably the furthest back in my mind that I can go. Human versus machine. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of stories of the same variety.
Yeah, I mean, I do the whole medieval reenactment thing, and I do the bardic thing, and you can find stuff about oh no, the invention of the plow is going to do in the human spirit, So basically, anytime any new technology is invented, people are extremely worried about what it's going to do to humanity. But it is not, in my opinion, a problem when you invent a machine to help with kind of the more drudgery of survival. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you invent a plow to make it easier to plant seeds and stuff, It is when you try to invent a machine to do the things that humans should do. And I think that's where we're having the backlash against AI right now, is that we're not using, I mean, we are, but the thing about these generative AI models and stuff like that is that they were originally invented to crunch complex numbers and data sets and things like that humans can theoretically do on some level, but it would just take us decades to do what computers could do in a much shorter amount of time. And so you get things like, we need a computer to cross-reference in a short amount of time large data sets to see if there are some sort of comparison between one type of cancer and another type of cancer to help the humans make connections to invent new, drugs or something. Because that speeds up the process of invention. And instead, somebody who does not understand, like, the human soul, for lack of a better word, is just like, wait, computer can do things faster. Feed it drawings and tell it to make drawing faster.
Tell it to make cartoon.
Yeah, and so that is the issue, is that when we thought of in the past, we will invent things to help humanity lighten the workload. We thought of things that would take away the drudgery of human life, the survival necessity of human life, the mundanity and the repetitiveness and the, to free humans up for the things we've only found that humans can do at the best level.
To put it another way, artificial intelligence and machines and stuff, we're supposed to make our work life easier, so our enjoyment of life are the things we do for fun. We have time for that, and we can have more time. We can have more time for that and better our skills in that. But it's reversed in reality. It's making those things we used to do for fun automated and almost obsolete, and forcing us to do the job we don't want to do, our day jobs, harder.
Well, it's not even the day job. It's that in a system where you must have infinite growth, which is kind of, let's just set it out. That is the point of capitalism. If you make exactly as much profit next year as you did this year, you're a failing business. You're not a successful business, you're a failing business. If I make $1 million this year and I make $1 million next year, according to capitalism, I am a failing business. I have to make $1 million this year, and then I have to make $2 million next year in order to be successful.
And then 5 million the next year, and 10
and then,
million.
3 million the next year. Yeah.
See, 3 million, you're still a failure. You got to double that. So now,
well, yeah, that's what they really want. But to be minimally successful, you have to show some kind of growth.
Yeah.
To pull a quote from the great Commander Stephanie Sterling, corporations don't want money; they want all of the money. So, in a system like that, you constantly have to cut somewhere, and the easiest thing to cut is labor cost. And so that has been how they've decided to use this, what we are calling AI. It's not actually any sort of intelligence, It's just theft of human work regurgitated. But so what it means is that it's not just our day jobs, it's that in the almost ideal, I hate to say it, of kind of the people at the top, eventually it's just like computers doing all the labor for free. But the weird thing is that nobody's really thinking it out far enough, because like, computers have no needs, computers have no desires, so what are computers going to buy? You know, you have to, in a capitalist system, you have to have somebody to buy something. So if there are no jobs for humans to make money to spend on goods and services, like, you know, like, they never seem to think about, like, step 2 or 3 down the line. They just keep thinking, like, in the very short term to raise my profit, you know. So, you know, getting back to the point of the show here, you know, that was what Richard Matheson was trying to point out in the thing here, is that, yes, machines are trying to replace us, but humans are extremely resilient, and even if we have to dress up as machines and pretend to be machines in order to do what we need to do, we're going to do what we need to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, let's talk about how they changed this story in 2011.
Okay, I wanna put a pin on that for now because there's a few other things I want to get to before we really get into the meat of the story here. Because number one, this is a DreamWorks movie. Yes, this is a Disney podcast, but this was a co-production of Disney's Touchstone Pictures and DreamWorks. This is not even the first co-production they did. This year alone, 2011, Disney and DreamWorks co-produce I Am Number 4, The Help, Fright Night, Real Steel, and Warhorse. And in total, Disney and DreamWorks combined co-produce 13 films, which is crazy when you realize who one of the founders of DreamWorks was. That would be Jeffrey Katzenberg, who used to be the head of Walt Disney Animation, who left Disney because Michael Eisner wouldn't make him the head of Walt Disney Pictures. And might I remind you that the villain in the first Shrek movie was a parody of Michael Eisner.
Yep.
So having all of that come full circle is hilarious to me. And the fact that we likely have 12 more DreamWorks movies that we could put out as a podcast, very interesting. And of course, I want to do a little shout to the director of this movie, Shawn Levy. We have talked about Shawn Levy before because he directed Night at the Museum, Free Guy, and a little movie I'm pretty sure our listeners have heard of. Kiki, let me know if you've heard of this movie, Deadpool and Wolverine. Have you heard of that one?
It does not sound familiar.
I think I heard about it. Listeners, if you've heard of this Deadpool and Wolverine movie, tell me about it. I would like to know about it.
Yeah, let us know if it's any good.
So it's interesting. This is all stuff that we've talked about before coming all together. And of course, this is a Hugh Jackman movie, and Hugh Jackman was huge, to put it in that perspective. He was kind of in everything. He was one of those golden boy guys. He still is. Hugh Jackman still is But there was that point where, he was in. It's like you couldn't go 6 months without a brand new Hugh Jackman movie coming out. Like the year after this, he does Les Mis, which is very interesting. To going from Real Steel to Les Mis.
Yeah. But I mean, before this, he had already been in everything.
Yeah, and that some comic book movie, right?
I think he had done a couple of those.
Yeah.
He'd done a few rom-coms.
Mm-hmm.
He'd done himself one of them Christopher Nolan movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he'd done himself one of them Darren Aronofsky movies by this point. So, I mean, yeah, no. He'd been around. Might have done some theater. I don't know. I heard something about that.
They tell me he's a good singer. I don't know. I might have to see. I might have to see Les Mis to find out about that.
Yeah.
But as we were doing this, we were talking off mic. There is quite a number. I mean, you know, to drop the joke, there is quite a number of Marvel actors in this film.
All of the top listed cast in this film either had already done a Marvel film or would go on to be a major character in a Marvel film. Remember, the MCU had not really gotten started. We had already had Iron Man at this point, and the
Avengers is a year away.
This is the same year that Thor comes out. This movie came out the same year that Thor came out, the first Thor. In fact, the little kid that plays Hugh Jackman's son in this is little kid Thor in the first Thor movie. He is a little baby Chris Hemsworth in that first Thor movie. Not in any of the other ones, you know, where they show kid Thor. But in that first movie, when they show Thor and Loki as kids, he is Thor. But so of the adults, the top billed cast are Hugh Jackman, Evangeline Lilly, who would go on to play Wasp, Anthony Mackie, so our current Captain America, Sam Wilson, formerly Falcon, and Kevin Durand, who had already been in X-Men Origins Wolverine as the Blob with Hugh Jackman. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting lineup, if you ask me. Most of them had not had their Marvel connection yet, and it's debatable. You know, I don't think you can count Kevin Durand as having been in the MCU now. I think that was his only Marvel connection, was playing the Blob. So I don't think we're counting X-Men Origins as an MCU movie, even with the events of Wolverine and Deadpool, and that's all I'll say about that.
All right, so that's kind of all I want to talk about you know the backstory of this movie and everything. So now
actually there is a little bit I want to talk about the backstory of this movie, because it leads into how they treated this movie.
Go ahead.
So there is an interesting bit about the screenplay and the story. It lists the story by a man named Dan Gilroy, and Dan Gilroy is a pretty well-known screenwriter. You might know him for writing some of the Bourne movies, as in the Jason Bourne movies. Those were a collaboration with his brother Tony Gilroy, who is also a screenwriter and director and stuff. But Dan Gilroy is probably his most famous movie that he did on his own was he wrote and directed a movie called Nightcrawler, with Jake Gyllenhaal, which is a really dark thriller movie.
Nothing to do with the Marvel character.
Not anything to do with the Marvel character, but it's a really, really dark thriller movie about a I haven't seen the movie. I just kind of have seen like the trailers and people talking about it. But from my understanding, it's a really dark psychological thriller about like a newsman who goes out and like films crimes, like straight up murders and stuff. Like he'll find serial killers or something and then like stalk the serial killers so he can like watch them kill or something. I don't know. I might be getting that entirely wrong, but it's supposed to be like that kind of movie so that he can like be there to scoop the other journalists. You know, he wrote the original story and the original script to this. And he's known for writing kind of darker scripts, like I said, Nightcrawler, the Bourne movies, okay? And they say that when they got this movie, when, you know, it came to Spielberg and Zemeckis and all who produced this movie, it was a rather dark script. Okay? But they took it and they gave it to a screenwriter and actor named John Gattens. So the screenplay that we finally got was written by John Gattens. Now, John Gattens is known for more goofy, lighthearted things.
Yeah, he was the producer on the WCW wrestling movie, Ready to Rumble, and you can see the influence of professional wrestling in this movie.
Yeah. He
also wrote the 2017 Power Rangers movie.
Yeah, and he was, as far as his acting goes, he has a bit part in this movie. He is in the movie as the guy with the kind of, rooster comb haircut who, is the first. He controls the first robot that the little kid fights, you know, in their first underground fighting league thing. But there's another interesting connection between Dan Gilroy and John Gattens. They both have credits on another movie, which is my favorite King Kong movie, Kong Skull Island. Except the roles are reversed. John Gattens wrote the story to Kong Skull Island, and then that script was taken away and given to Dan Gilroy, who wrote the script. So what we have here is two movies. One, I'm going to say, turned out better than the other, and by the end of this podcast, you'll figure out which is which.
I mean, the MonsterVerse is still going strong.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't kind of already guessed, we have a guy who's kind of known for writing weird little fluff things. Also, as an actor, I'm just going to mention that John Gattens was in the Fred movie and also Fred 2. And if you don't know the Fred movies, I envy you so much. You lived a blessed and charmed life and I want to switch places with you. But, you know, you've got John Gattens, who's kind of known for these, like, weird, fluffy, little nonsense things. I'm just going to say it. There it is. And then you have Dan Gilroy, who's known for writing these kind of really dark, complex films. And I think it kind of comes out which is which. I can't imagine getting given a Dan Gilroy script and going, I know who should rewrite this. John Gattens. I'm just going to point that out. I'm going to point that out. I really, really would love to see what Dan Gilroy's original idea for this movie was, because I kind of have a feeling that it was really badass. And instead, what we got was, want to get into it?
Yeah, let's kind of get into the movie. So the plot of the movie is we have Hugh Jackman, and I'm probably just going to call him Hugh Jackman for the entire movie because he's just Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, nobody gives a shit about what the characters' names are, so we're just going to go with actors because we don't remember and you won't remember either.
So Hugh Jackman's character is a former boxer. I believe he is a former amateur boxer. He does make a reference that in all of his career, he never had one fight in the professional league. So we'll get to that. So he's a former amateur boxer. He was all right. Middle of the road career. He won more than he lost, but he never quite made it to the big time before human boxing was abolished. Not outlawed. We'll get to that. And right now, to make ends meet, he is getting into the robot boxing world. And he's kind of sucks at it. He has this idea, you know, his robots are kind of he has a habit of acting before he thinks, and because of that, his robots always get their ass kicked. Right at the beginning, he's taken up a job with his boxing robot at a state fair fighting a bull, and the bull just tears his robot to shreds.
I mean, I feel bad for the bull as well, but also the bull does end up winning.
Yeah. And we find we start that rivalry between Hugh Jackman and Kevin Durant's characters, that it was Kevin Durant that was Hugh Jackman's last opponent before he retired from boxing, knocked him out. And he's held it over him ever since.
And Kevin Durant, once again, really good actor. Sucked as the Blob because, frankly, everyone sucked in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Let's just be honest with that. That movie sucked real hardcore. But that was not Kevin Durant's fault, just like it wasn't Ryan Reynolds' fault that version of Deadpool sucked, you know? But Kevin Durant does really good in every other part I've ever seen him in. And honestly, he does really well in this part. Like, he is there to be an absolute douchebag, and I've never wanted to see a guy get his face punched in more than I want to see this guy get his face punched in.
I wish we had saw it.
Yeah, I mean, you want to watch a robot wail on this dude's face, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of the movie, he gets his just desserts, but we never see it.
Yeah,
it's all implied.
You feel robbed at the end of the movie that you do not get to see that dude, like, stomped on by a robot, you know?
Or at least, by Anthony Mackie's boys.
Yeah, you want to see Anthony Mackie and his boys show up and be like, "Yo, we've come to collect."
Yeah.
With our fists,
So yeah, the state fair is actually run by Kevin Durant, and that's the opening of the movie. He runs the state fair. He's arranged for Hugh Jackman's boxing robot to fight their bull in the big event.
And this robot is a piece of crap. Even as your first entry into this world, like, this is the first glimpse you get of this world. Even before you get the exposition of what we're doing here, you know that this is a POS robot.
It's rusted all over.
Yeah, it's barely functioning. It can barely stand up. And it gets its ass handed to it by a bull.
No animals were harmed in the making of this picture, I hope.
Yeah, all of the, most of this, I will say something about the special effects in this movie. The special effects in this movie are excellent because they are about 90% practical.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the robot stuff is animatronic, but the actual, when they have to do a walk cycle, and when they have to do any actual boxing moves, that is CGI. So if you see anything kind of close up or whatever, all of that is animatronic. When they're working off an actor, when it's a long shot and the robot actually has to physically walk, that will be CGI. And anytime robots are fighting each other, that is CGI with a motion capture. So that's what we're looking at here as far as special effects. They made a massive amount of animatronic props and puppetry props. Made by, if I understand this correctly, it is someone who was trained by Stan Winston. This was after Stan Winston had passed on, so this was one of his proteges. And apparently Spielberg, who was the producer on this film, insisted that they use as many practical effects as possible, because he kept quoting Jurassic Park to Sean Levy, and he said, those effects hold up better because it was practical, and also we got a lot better acting out of the humans because they were actually looking at real things. And so as much practical effects as they could do is in this. And then apparently the motion capture was done with the brand new Avatar system that James Cameron's team had developed, which was still the top of the line at the time.
It was the talk of the town. Everyone, after that movie, everyone wanted in on that. Yeah,
so they had used, I mean, like I said, Disney co-production, so they got their hands on the Avatar motion capture system, and that's how they captured actual boxers for the thing. And speaking of the boxing, interesting thing, Hugh Jackman was trained to look like a boxer and move like a boxer by Sugar Ray Leonard. Hall of Famer, yeah.
I believe he actually does get a shout out in the movie.
Yeah, I think they mentioned several famous boxers, and he's one of the names. They mentioned
Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard for the showmanship.
Yeah. So, but he was the one that actually gave boxing lessons to Hugh Jackman, which kind of cool.
So, let's talk about what they added, the added element into this story. Now, you mentioned that in the original story, the original Twilight Zone episode, the original short story, it is two people. It is the former boxer and his manager who are running this robot. In this movie, we have Hugh Jackman and his son. Now, the backstory, that is the thing that is added in this movie. Hugh Jackman is informed that an old girlfriend of his has passed away, and he has to sign documents to give his girlfriend's sister parental rights. He's basically signing away his parental rights so that his ex-girlfriend's sister can formally adopt his son. The sister, the aunt, played by Hope Davis, who also has a Marvel connection because she played Tony Stark's mom in that flashback in Civil War.
Yeah, that is true. I had forgotten about that. Thank you for reminding me.
Yep.
Everybody in this movie has a Marvel connection.
Yeah. Her husband is saying, "Hey, we're leaving the country for 2 months. We're going to Italy. We will not be able to take care of the child." And Hugh Jackman proposes, "I will take care of the child for the summer for, I believe they said $100,000."
Yeah, it was like $50,000 up front and $50,000 when the kid is safely delivered back to them at the end of the 3 months.
So that's how it is. He's not doing this out of the kindness of his own heart. He's not doing this because he wants to reconnect with his kid. He's doing this because he wants some money.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman at the start of this movie is a douchebag and a half.
So that's where the kid. So instead of as in the original story, the boxer and the former manager, it's a father that is a former boxer and his son, who is obsessed with the robot fight league, and apparently is a genius with robotics.
And he's also a video gamer.
Yeah. Because when he uses the $50,000 that he's given up front to buy a new robot, which is a former boxing champion that, as Anthony Mackie said, was so good it was banished from the country and now it's back. So it's been in Japan for the last few years, and it's programmed to understand Japanese, and the kid can speak Japanese because he plays a lot of Japanese video games. If this had been made just a few years later, he would have said anime.
Yeah.
But, so he can control it's also a voice-controlled robot. And I'm doing the details now because all of this comes together at the end of the movie. So it's a voice-controlled robot, and if you say voice commands, it will do it, and there are also some pre-programmed combinations in this thing. So Hugh Jackman wants to take this robot out and to the fight leagues, underground fight leagues, make some more money off the fight because he's got a former champion in his midst now, but the kid is like, nope, you are not going anywhere without me. You have said that you are going to take care of me for these few months, and you're going to do it. You are not going to pawn me off to your wannabe girlfriend, Evangeline Lilly. The little side story there is Evangeline Lilly owns this boxing gym. Her father was Hugh Jackman's trainer, and now he lives in the gym and is paying rent, and because he hasn't been able to pay rent because he doesn't have any money, Evangeline Lilly is in danger of losing the gym. And there's this little will they, won't they.
You have a feeling they already have, but they're kind of on the outs at the moment.
Probably because he owes her money.
I mean, maybe, yeah.
Because there's that point where we never get the connection. It's just all of a sudden he comes home and gets into bed with her. Meanwhile, she is also going out with other men. So your mileage may vary. Oh yeah, I have to put this out there. We have skipped this part. This is a movie that came out in 2011. This movie takes place in the far off distant future of 2020.
Yeah.
So there's that. So the technology is not that far off from what it was in 2011 and not that far off than what we actually have in 2020. So the point is he goes to the Underground Fight League with his new former champion robot. He meets up with Anthony Mackie's character. The two are old friends. He's basically a betting, a bookie. He takes bets for various robot boxing fights. And he also is the booker for the Underground Boxing League. And he's offering Hugh Jackman an undercard fight since these last few robots have been poopy. I'll keep it PG. But yeah, it's his robots suck. So he's going to give him an undercard fight, but he wants the main event. All right, you want the main event? You got a former world champion in your corner? Fine, you get the main event. And like I said, yes, this is a former world champion fighting robot, but Hugh Jackman does not know how this robot works.
His own robot that he just bought, the Japanese robot, the Japanese samurai robot, the awesome purple Japanese samurai robot that is one of the best designs in the movie.
Got the LED kanji on its body.
Yeah, I mean, this thing is gorgeous. By the way, shout out to the production design on this movie, because anytime they go into the robot fighting world, everything about this is amazing. The robot designs are incredible. The places where until they get to the big arena with the robot fighting league or whatever, the like official one, which is just like a normal like boxing ring in an arena. But like all these underground spots that they go to do like the kind of off track betting kind of places.
Cage fights, man. These are cage fights.
Yeah, I mean, like, these kind of underground fight rings.
It's
all
like
of these places are so wonderfully designed. Like this first place that they go to fight with this like samurai bot, like it is kind of an old industrial space, but there are these like really cool balcony boxes that are like step balconies that overlook the thing with all these like industrial chains hanging everywhere, and these robot arms that would like put cars together, like those kind of robot arms, manufacturing arms everywhere. And I mean, this place looks awesome. The place Anthony Mackie works out of, like, this is one of the coolest like underground fight club spaces you could think of. And I want to hug this production designer. Holy crap, this is one of the coolest looking things ever. And all of the robot designs are so inventive. Eventually we get to one that has two heads.
Twin Cities out of Minnesota. I love it.
Yeah, Twin Cities out of Minnesota. The names are inventive. You see like a bunch of like, even the ones that are like broken and discarded in the background and in junkyards, and all these like ones that you see like coming out of fights, and it's like, oh man, my robot's wrecked. And like, I mean,
not just they designed these characters to be toys, and they did release toys of these robots, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, they put so much effort into the designs of these things.
And you're even the ones you're only seeing for a fraction of a second on screen.
Yeah, and it is so freaking awesome. All of the background stuff. And then it's like, we now pause your awesome robot fighting movie to go back to Hugh Jackman and his brat kid.
Yeah.
And as I told you off mic, chicks do not dig Hugh Jackman and his brat kid. You know what chicks dig?
Giant robots.
Dig giant robots.
I missed that show.
Robots. Oh my god.
One of the first victims of Cartoon Network's tax write-offs back in the day.
Oh my god.
I miss you, Mega Sexolar.
Oh my god, that was even pre-Zasloff was how badly that one got screwed. But yeah, no, I mean, this is what I hate. Like, we're gonna get back to telling you about this story, because I'm guaranteeing you never saw this movie, because I didn't see this movie. Did you see this movie?
I did. I saw this movie in theaters.
I mean, I intended to see this movie as like a goof, because I watched the trailers and I was like, oh look, Wolverine starring in Rock'em Sock'em Robots the movie. That's gotta be worth a Mystery Science Theater thing, you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of is. Like, I was kind of bored watching it, you know? But, like, because I didn't have anybody, like, sitting there. I mean, you and I kind of, you know, joked around, you know, via the internet about it, but like, I think if we'd been sitting in the same room watching it, we would have like been mocking this thing mercilessly. I do think this movie could have been saved by either. I mean, I still want to see what Dan Gilroy would have done with this movie, because holy crap!
Do you think he would have had the father-son aspect of the movie, or no?
I do not think, because, I mean, maybe there was a father-son, but from what I've read about the backstory, I think that the father-son storyline was put in by John Gattens.
I think because they wanted this to be a family movie. And nothing more says family movie than a story of a father and son.
I mean, you can have a dark movie and have a father and son.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently also, you know, from what, I mean, at least, you know, from what it says on the film's Wikipedia page, so take that for what you will, Sean Levy also chose to do the kind of state fair angle and the like good Midwestern values, you know, that kind of thing, because it would pull out that father-son aspect. I think that the father-son bit was Gattens from what I've read of the backstory. Anyway, I think this movie could have been a little bit better before we get back into the thing. If, like I said, we'd have seen what Gilroy would have done with it. Or we had gone in just like a balls to the wall. This is just a really goofy movie about robots beating each other up. Like, I know that you mentioned that the Simpsons episode came out, when the robot fighting was becoming really big, robot wars and stuff.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is that I actually know a guy who does robot wars.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know it's still a thing. It's just not on TV anymore.
Well, no, I mean he was on the TV, BattleBots, you know, and like, so you know, shout out to my friend Jason, who does BattleBots, and he's worked on several kind of famous teams in BattleBot history. But the thing is like, the thing I kind of would have liked to seen, and they only kind of hint at it a couple of times, is that I would have liked to have seen a more BattleBots mixed with this, because when Matheson wrote this story, it was just a metaphor for machines taking our jobs. And you needed that thing of, oh, the machines look human, so a human could pass as a machine. But if you're going to drop that premise for this film, and if BattleBots is already a thing, and the idea is, and we said we'd get back to it, so we might as well now, they haven't outlawed human boxing. It's just that, like, humans really just wanted to watch things like beat the crap out of each other without the threat of death.
It's a lust of violence. Okay, so after Samurai Bot is killed, and it's killed very violently with the oil kind of drooping out of his dead body.
This purple goo oil splattering everywhere because it's not blood, but, you know, it's...
So they can get away with it.
Yeah.
But, so after all of that, Hugh Jackman and his kid break into a junkyard to try to find parts to either repair what's been destroyed or make a new robot. And they go into... Hugh Jackman goes into the backstory of this world and why robot boxing is become so popular as it is. People wanted more violence, and they could not actually get the level of violence that they wanted out of human contact sports. So, I mean, they wanted gore. They wanted death. And humans are not going to be going into a boxing ring to freaking kill each other and rip their heads off and all of that. But people wanted blood and gore, so they had robots do it. And they see a version 1 robot in the junkyard that looked very human. Almost human-like, like it is in the Twilight Zone episode. Because, hey, they thought, okay, if we can look like humans, that people will accept them. But as the robots got more advanced, they started looking more and more non-human. Basically, that's where it is. It's the humans' lust for violence and gore, and they want destruction, and they want, you know, it's... If they had played up that the Robot League exists to satisfy humanity's bloodlust for violence and death in combat sports, it might have been something.
I have a feeling that this might have been a line left over from the Gilroy script because it seems really dark, but they never really play into that. And I want to point out that, like, I'm going to draw a parallel to another Spielberg movie, but one that he directed, at least partially. I think the movie would have been more interesting if they'd have been like, okay, this is mostly boxing, But a lot of the newer robots have been upgraded to satisfy humanity's bloodlust with, like, cool weapons, like
Yes.
battle bots,
Blades and saws and whatnot.
flamethrowers, and, whatever.
Mhm.
And that puts the older bots that Hugh Jackman is using even more on the back foot,
Because there's no way he'd be able to afford a weapon, that kind of a robot.
Yeah, weapon upgrades. And then you're back to, like, human ingenuity again.
Mhm.
But the thing is like, you're like, well, maybe you don't want to, like, scare the little kiddies because it's like a PG-13 movie or whatever.
Or
But
you could even
I
do that in
will-
the movie itself. Like, have kids be in the audience for these events. The kid himself is a massive fan of the Robot Fight League.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be 11. But I will point out that another movie that, like I said, Spielberg directed, okay, that came out in 2001 was, in keeping with our theme, AI, artificial intelligence, okay, with Haley Joel Osment and, all that. And there is a whole horrifying sequence in there. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
No.
But there is a horrifying sequence in there where this incredibly human-looking robot kid, played by Haley Joel Osment, is taken to something called a flesh fair, where robots are destroyed in really torturous ways by humans who are mad that, like, robots took our jobs, And so it's basically like, those smash rooms where you get to, like, beat up old microwaves with sledgehammers and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically that, but you get to do it to, like, out-of-date robots that are headed for the junkyard. Except, like, it's really torturous, and these things can talk back and beg for their lives and stuff. And it is a, like, horror movie scene. Because, like, these things are semi-sentient and can beg for their lives. And so, right in the middle of this, like, fairy tale Spielberg movie, it turns into, like, Saw or Hostel or something, except with, like, robots. And one of the robots is, like, 12-year-old Haley Joel Osment, who is, like, crying and begging for his life and stuff. I mean, like, it's horrific. At least these robots don't talk,
Yeah.
Like,
they're not sentient. They are all controlled and programmed.
Yeah. You still kind of feel for them because they have, like, eyes and kind of human movements and stuff, and humans are really, really bad about just anthropomorphizing everything.
Mhm.
But, like, Spielberg already did a movie where, like, there's, like, already, like, a much more horrific scene. So, like, you might be like, this might terrify children. If you think your children would be terrified at watching robots just, like, box each other with, like, saw blades and flamethrowers, never ever show them the movie AI. It's a good movie. I like that movie, but, like, I saw it, when I was an adult, and that scene terrified me. But I think the movie would have been better if it was more like I mean, we had stuff like Pacific Rim that came out similarly, which it kind of embraced how goofy the idea was. And I'm kind of surprised Sean Levy didn't embrace how goofy this idea was more. Like, this movie, all at once, is goofy and takes itself way too seriously.
And it's like, you know how people say the worst part of a Godzilla movie is when they switch over to the people? It's kind of the same thing, is that we don't watch a Godzilla movie to see people talk. We watch a Godzilla movie to see Godzilla wreck poop. Wreck stuff. It's a movie about fighting robots, and we're here when the movie makes every effort to cut to a father and his estranged son, or the father with his estranged landlord / potential love interest.
Well, okay, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, because in the better Godzilla movies, like Godzilla -1, you can watch for the humans. Godzilla originally was a metaphor, and you're watching for the humans. But the humans have to be interesting. And the sucky thing is that they have like a who's who cast list of really good actors, and I do not give one single flying fig about any of these characters.
And like that, they're all good actors. They're not given much to work with.
I mean, even the kid's a pretty good actor. I mean, he's one of those child actors, and we've talked about these a lot. There are a lot of child actors that just, like, they act when they're children, and then they get to be adults, and they're like, yeah, this is not my chosen career. And they go off and do other things. I do not actually know what Dakota Goyo, who is the kid in this movie, I don't know what he did, but he got out of acting by 2014. So, he's retired, but he was in a lot of really good movies and stuff. He was in Rise of the Guardians, which I'm it's not the greatest movie, but decent enough film. And he did several other little things here or there. And, he did a Blumhouse movie that was not one of their, like, most famous ones, but it was also a decent one, But he had, like, a pretty good career as a kid, and then he just decided, yeah, not what I want to do for the rest of my life, and moved on with his life. Mm-hmm. But as much as child actors are hit and miss, he does what he can with this part. But this part is really kind of thin.
They make him so annoying.
Oh my goodness, the character.
The character, not the actor.
Not the actor. Actor is fine. I have nothing against this kid. Decent actor, nothing against him.
I've seen worse kid actors.
I mean, yeah, and, that is what it is. But
no one in this movie is given much to work with.
And the thing is, the kid works with exactly what they gave him, which is be the world's most annoying child. And he nails it. But that is the part they give him, is be insufferable.
Not only be insufferable, but be insufferable and be right. Okay, we've talked about the kid power kind of characters in kid power movies where the adults are dumb and the kids know everything. It's hard when one of those characters, when you have that, and that really dies out in the early 2000s. When you try to doing it in here, because here in 2011 here, where you have the kid that can speak multiple languages, he knows his way around robotics. He is the one that's giving the advice, like, don't take the main event fight, take the undercard, because you don't know what you're doing with this robot yet. Why, and he's the one that, to get back into the story, he's the one that finds Adam, the main robot for the rest of this movie, this former training robot.
ATOM.
Yes, ATOM. And he's the one that trains it. He programs it. He finds it has a shadow boxing function. That means that it'll mimic any moves you do, and that's an easy way to program it. And he's the one that's telling Hugh Jackman what to do and how to use this robot. And he's the one that's right. Especially when we finally get to the big time where Adam has gone viral. His fights are going viral. He starts dancing on the way to the ring, and that's how they start going viral. Because Hugh Jackman's telling him to inject some sports entertainment into the fight.
Sports entertainment. Where have I heard that before?
I did mention that one of the writers of this movie worked on a wrestling movie.
Yeah, and I'm going to say, here's the thing is, Evangeline Lilly, her part is like, yes, her father was the boxing trainer, but she's the one that knows the robot part of it. She's the mechanic and the programmer. But once the kid shows up, he finds Adam, and Evangeline Lilly fixes up the robot.
Using parts of the other two robots that Hugh Jackman already had.
Yeah, that Hugh Jackman wrecked because he's a doofus. So Evangeline Lilly fixes up the robot for the kid. She hands him an old tablet. For this movie, it's still supposed to be like futuristic HP stuff,
They got
HP
some branding in here.
HP
got branding
must have paid so much money for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything is HP branded. I'm not going to knock them because, I'm recording this right now on an HP gaming laptop.
As am I.
Yeah, they're not paying us, goodness knows. If you want to, we're open to sponsorship deals. But, yeah, it just happens to be what we both bought independently. But, yeah, HP must have paid, a lot of money to get that branding in there. But, she hands him, an old tablet, which is how most of the robots are controlled. And then she's like, yeah, you're a gamer, right? It works like gaming controls. You press this and press that, and here's your joystick, basically.
But it's the kid that inserts the voice command function from the Samurai Bot.
Yeah, and the thing is that once they get away from Evangeline Lilly, it goes from her telling him how the robot works to him being able to just kit bash a fighting robot by himself. What did he look up, a YouTube tutorial while they were on the road? And just be like, oh yeah, I can do this on my own.
He says, I'm a genius.
Yeah, but all kids say that.
So it's what's Evangeline Lilly's role once you have the kid that can now build robots?
better than she can.
Yeah.
Because she's like, wait a minute, you did what now?
Yes,
but the
that's
thing
supposed
is,
to be possible.
okay, and let me tell you my biggest thing is I want to know if the writer of this movie ever used a computer for anything other than typing a script. Like, is this dude a gamer? Has this dude ever used like any sort of Siri or anything like that? Like, because let me tell you my biggest problem about this. This is the idea of the film. The premise of part of this film is they find this like fairly new-ish robot when the kid first gets there. They get that purple samurai robot, and it's got like a top-of-the-line processor controller unit. And the top-of-the-line controller unit is voice-activated. Right uppercut, dodge, go left, go right. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Do a combo. Hadouken! You know, like that's what Hugh Jackman is using to control the really good high function, like, oh, it's got the new hotness, right?
But he never gives himself any chance to actually learn how it works.
Well, that's one problem, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I want anybody listening to this to pause their listening of this. Go get whatever digital assistant thingy you use on your phone, or if you got like a little wiretap speaker in your house hooked up to something. And I want you to like give it a few commands and see how long it takes for it to respond to you. And then think about that lag time in the middle of a boxing match. Then I want you to grab whatever video game controller and video game you have and just pull up any fighting game. I don't care how old it is. Any game that has any sort of fighting mechanic or shooting mechanic, anything, and just button mash the hell out of it. And see what the lag time is on that. Okay? And if you happen to have a VR headset that does a motion tracker, or an old Kinect even, I don't care what kind of old school like motion tracking thing you have. If you have access to any of that, or even like motion tracking on your phone, if you've got any kind of motion tracking game that uses, the accelerometer in your phone, pull out a game and use that and see what the lag time is. I can almost guarantee you that the worst of those three options is gonna be the voice control. The absolute worst of that. It's gonna screw up more. It's gonna misunderstand you more. Especially if you like turn on your TV to like a loud volume and then try to trigger whatever you're talking to. Because remember, Hugh Jackman is in the middle of a loud screaming crowd.
And the best that this movie tells us is he covers the mic up when he wants to talk to the kid.
But I mean, when he's talking to the robot,
yeah,
He just has, like, you know, a little headset, like you'd use if you're like
we're
talking
doing
on
to record this
Discord, or
podcast.
well, I mean, we have better microphones for the podcast, but, like, you know, if you've just got like a gaming headset on, or whatever, and you're doing voice chat on an MMO or whatever, like, that's what he's using. And so, like, yeah, it's pretty close to his mouth, but, like, he is in the middle of either, like, really high reverb concrete box things filled with people, or in the middle of arenas packed with people, you know? And he's talking to basically voice recognition AI. Now, granted, this is, you know, the far off year of 2020 when technology is better than ours. But come on. For real? And also, just think of the processing lag time. The computer has to hear your command, parse your command, process your command, transfer it, and then do that into motion. Okay? But we see before, in the early thing, and in the early fights, like the first fight that the kid comes to and watches Hugh Jackman fight, when the purple samurai gets turned to goo. Basically, what the kid is telling him in that fight, when the kid turns out to be right, is, you are a button mashing noob. What is wrong with you? Because Hugh Jackman is still trying to use the tablet, and we see him when his original bot gets absolutely toasted by the bull. He is just kind of being a button mashing noob. He's just wailing away at the...
And that can work, but for only so long. I say this as a button masher in fighting games.
Oh, yeah, I mean, depending on what game I'm playing, you know, I've won against many people as a button masher. Like, there's some use to button mashing. But the guy is like, you know, you're going up against skilled people who have memorized combos in their sleep. Like,
they got the frame rate down pat.
Yeah, it's like, they know exactly where your hitbox is, dude. Like, you need to practice more. And Hugh Jackman's like, you know, like, I woke up 5 minutes ago, I drank a fifth of whiskey, and I'm just gonna button mash my way through this fight. Oh, crap, I am 75K in debt. Like,
Yeah.
And so then they find this, like, the oldest bot they have found yet in the movie. And the bot has shadow technology that will mimic with zero freaking lag.
I mean, at least saying that it's a training bot makes sense to have the shadow boxing function. Because you train it to have combo. Okay, you know, you have it, let's say you show it some fights of the other bots, and it'll mimic their style, so the actual fight bot can get a general idea and program a counter to it. That at least makes sense.
Yeah. But the thing is that it's not just like you have it watch, like, a fight, and then it can kind of play back the fight. Like, that would seem to be kind of an older technology. Okay, sure. You know? But, like, it learns to dance just by watching the kid dance, and it does it with, like, zero lag time.
the lag isn't very entertaining. So
Well, no. I'm just saying. Okay? Let's just think about this.
Mhm.
And they go like, oh, it has a shadow function. That's kind of neat. And I'm like, this is by far the most useful function of any of these robots. You know?
Mhm.
And this is kind of the only part where Matheson's like a human is actually like inside the robot or pretending to be the robot and doing the fighting.
Because again, we have Jackman training the robot to box, and of course, I mean, do you want to skip all the way to the final part?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of move up through the league and
They finally get to the
whatever.
big. Yeah, they finally get their big fight as part of the league, and yeah, this is full WWE Monday Night Raw level production with storylines.
They
And
even get the "Let's get ready to rumble" guy.
it even has an evil boss character. This is freaking Stephanie McMahon.
And her dad, because they call them a father-daughter team.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have her dressed kind of like if Stephanie McMahon were Asian and had a thick accent. And if Vince McMahon were young and hot and also Asian.
But the Asian guy is just, he's the former boy genius that created the champ, Zeus.
Yeah.
But okay, so we'll skip ahead here. They finally get to their big fight. They win the fight, and the kid does a freaking pro wrestling promo. He grabs the mic, does a full-on, you're controlling the league, and we're gonna stop you, and why did you give us a title shot?
Yeah, we demand to fight your title, your champion, whose name is Zeus.
I mean, Hulk Hogan beat Zeus.
Hulk Hogan's a punk. Hulk Hogan's a jabroni.
I know. In the immortal words of the Iron Sheik, F the Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
The point is that it's sort of this is the only part where it really makes sense, that it embraces the ridiculousness of the premise, that the Robot Fight League goes full pro wrestling. With storylines, with evil characters, with a promo battle. The fact that in promotion of this movie, Hugh Jackman actually goes on, and I remember this, when this movie came out, Hugh Jackman actually went on WWE television to promote the movie and became part of storylines.
Yeah, and the thing is that it kind of makes it kind of makes sense with like Robot Fighting League that it would be more kind of showmanship like that, you know?
That's where the dancing comes in. Even Hugh Jackman says it. They want a show, give them a show. Which is why the kid and Adam start dancing before their fights.
The thing is, though, is that right after the kid, they beat the two-headed robot, and the kid does his promo, and like, hey, I'll beat your champion anytime, anywhere, The kid and Hugh Jackman are, going outside, and here comes Kevin Durant, and he's like, yo, where's my money? Bitch better have my money. And Hugh Jackman's like, yeah, I was just coming to see you to give you money. And he's like, yeah, I believe that. Taste some fist. And him and his henchmen just beat the ever-loving crap out of Hugh Jackman, who does put up a good fight. Let's be realistic, but there's like 4 of them in one Hugh Jackman, who is not Wolverine in this movie. So,
no claws.
He gets his butt handed to him. And Hugh Jackman's like, yeah, you know what, if I'm gonna get my butt handed to me, I'm gonna take the kid back to his aunt where he's safe and will not be accosted by a bunch of loan sharks in a alleyway. And the kid is like really upset. He's like, no, come on, we were doing good. I was fighting with giant robots. Chicks dig giant robots. But we get the big, like, emotional heavyweight knockout punch of the movie that was used in the trailers and whatever, which is like, I wanted you to fight for me. I wanted you to fight to be my daddy. You know. Which, I mean, yeah, you got a point there, kid.
I think everyone wants that at some point. Everyone wants someone that will fight for them. But I mean, it's done in such an...
It is what every child wants. You want your parent to, like, be on your side. I don't know. It's just, this kid has been such a whiny little doucheburger the entire time that at this point it's like, you could have tried being a little bit more lovable, you know? Like, I know it's not the kid's fault.
The kid just lost his mom.
I get it. But, you know, it's a kid in a movie. I'm allowed to hate, like, a crappily written character in a movie. It's not like it's a real child.
Yeah, it's a character in a movie. I get it.
It's a badly written character in a movie. I'm allowed to throw a little shade.
But okay, so they finally get it. You know, they get the title match at the pay-per-view. That's what I'm calling it. This is wrestling. This is a title match at the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, the kid is like, please, Auntie and Uncle, I have to go be there. This is all I want in my life. Let me go be with my dad and my robot.
And we let him go, and we get to the big event, and random Phil Lamar cameo.
Yeah, which, again, like, all of these actors are so good. Like, why? Come on, this movie could have been so much better. Phil Lamar is amazing.
Yeah. And it's the big fight. Kevin Durant comes to the fight and makes a bet with Anthony Mackie that Adam won't last one round, and they go like $100,000, something like that. It even says, I'm sitting right there, hand me my money. So yeah, that's the whole. So that's his little thing. He bets that Adam can't go one round, and once that round is over, come here's my seat, come get me my money. And the fight goes on, but Adam is getting his ass handed to him to the point where the voice controls are destroyed. That's the joke here. And it goes multiple rounds. The comeuppance, of course, being that Kevin Durant is trying to get out of the building with his, I assume, girlfriend. Because, hey, he bet for one round for an obscene amount of money, and we've gone into round 5. But Anthony Mackie and his boys come in and say, yeah, you're going to come with us. And that is the last we see of Kevin Durant in this movie. And like I said earlier, I would have liked to seen his comeuppance by Anthony Mackie and his boys beating his ass.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been fun because we see like Kevin Durant and his boys just absolutely lay waste to Hugh Jackman in front of his son.
Yeah.
Earlier in the movie, and it's like, we don't even get to watch him take like one punch from Anthony Mackie to the face. Like, come on, man.
Or at least have Hugh Jackman punch him in the face.
Yeah, like, can't Hugh Jackman or like the little kid kick him in the nuts or something? Like,
he's such an asshole in the movie that you want to see him get his ass kicked. And when it finally comes to that point, the movie cuts away, and we never see him in the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not asking for him to be, like, eviscerated on camera. It's like, just at least, like, one good shot to the jaw, you know?
One punch in the nose and have a drop of blood come out.
Yeah.
But the point is, we've gone into the final round, and the voice control has been destroyed in Adam. It can no longer hear the voice commands. Since they've been using the voice commands throughout all of his fights, they don't have the tablet anymore. What do? So they only have one shot left to at least go the distance, is they put Adam in shadow mode. And it's literally Hugh Jackman fighting against Zeus the robot in the final round. This is as close as we get to the original premise of the story, where it is the human disguised as a robot.
Except everybody knows what's going on. Because there are some really cool shots, and basically all of these were in the trailer. So it's one of those where the trailer spoils the quote-unquote twist of the movie.
And Phil Lamar, who is the color commentator for the Robot Fight League, points it out. Hey, Adam must have a shadow mode because his trainer is fighting alongside him.
Yeah, he's like, oh, look, Hugh Jackman's over there shadow boxing on the side of the ring, you know. And apparently this is not illegal in any way, because it's not like a human is in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
A controller is a controller, even if it's a human controller.
Well, I mean, the humans are controlling it anyway, whether it's voice mode or joystick, tablet, or shadow mode. You know, it's like the human is inputting commands. You know, it's just a human is not getting injured, and that's the only thing people seem to care about. Mm-hmm. Because Adam is a training robot, Adam wasn't necessarily meant to dish out damage in high doses like most of the modern robots. Adam was meant to just take a lot of damage and, like, keep standing there. Because it's a training dummy. But the thing is that Zeus is a high-powered, high-damage, but short battery life robot. It's meant to get in there, defeat its opponent, and get out within 2 rounds.
It's Goldberg.
Yeah. And the thing is it's got all these, like, really high energy drain things. One of the cool things that it does have is, like, nitrogen-powered piston arm punches. And that drains a lot of power, we see. And that's a cool weapon. Like, I wanted to see more cool weapons. And so it's cool to watch Zeus use that. It's also really cool that Zeus is controlled not by a tablet like most other fighting robots. It is controlled by a 3-screen gamer chair with, like, a keyboard and a couple of joysticks, and like it is a swank gamer chair setup. Like,
that Asian kid who is now part of owner of the company, who built Zeus, is, like, controlling it personally. You almost expect him to look down and say, "Hey, chat.
Hey, chat, how we doing today? Watch this move." You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Gooberboy69, thanks for subscribing. Hey, Ella54, thanks for the bits. Like, you know, like, you know, you just, like, you're expecting that, like, in the middle of the fight.
And if this was real, that would be happening. They'd be broadcasting on Twitch and all that.
Yeah, it is really, I mean, I don't watch as much anymore, but the first couple of seasons I was very into Overwatch League. And it reminded me kind of more of like what the setup of Overwatch League was for a little while. And so it was kind of like watching one dude playing Overwatch League on the side and one dude like watching YouTube on the other side of the ring. Like, but anyway, yeah, so it is kind of funny because like as Zeus kind of starts slowing down because his battery core is draining, like his controller, like the guy controlling him, who I cannot remember his actor's name, Carl Une. He is from DC actually, because he was on Arrow. Yeah, so we got Marvel and then like one DC representation.
Well, Phil LaMarr.
Well, Phil LaMarr, yeah, because he does a lot of voice acting for DC. But I always think of Phil LaMarr more for Futurama anyway. But yeah, so we got Marvel and DC represented in here. But anyway, Carl Une, anyway, he's over there controlling Zeus and being evil and
he is losing his, well, I'll say it, he's losing
mind.
his shit.
Yeah.
He's losing his shit here to the point where he is destroying the screens out of frustration because his bot is getting his ass kicked.
Yeah, because like I said, Adam was made to take a lot of to take a beating and, take a licking and keep on ticking. So he's still got power and Zeus is running out of battery. So Zeus is running down, and that's when Hugh Jackman's like, okay, I'll stop like blocking punches and just wail on this dude.
And then you get the hopeful music and the slow down, and there's Evangeline Lilly in the crowd looking at Hugh Jackman boxing with smiles, and the kid is looking at his dad, and he's crying because his dad is finally fighting for him.
I mean, for him.
Literally for him.
For the money, for fame, for glory. We don't really know. I don't really know how this counts as fighting for.
He's fighting in his place, quite literally.
Yeah, but like not as a father. Like this isn't really gonna change anything. I'll get to that in a second.
But it's more like the ex-boxer gets to have one more fight, and it's for the world title.
And honestly, that is a little bit what Matheson was talking about, because that's the one kind of other hopeful part of the original story, is that even though he almost dies in the fight with the robot, the boxer in the original story kind of gets his one last shot at doing the thing he was passionate about, because the story makes it clear that boxing was his passion, and then it gets outlawed in favor of robots doing it instead. And so even though he nearly dies in his final fight, he has that one last yeah, I got to box one last time, go me,
I mean, the movie, once we get to the third act, this movie becomes Rocky.
In a very specific way, because as Adam is beating Zeus to heck and back, the bell rings.
And we go to the decision.
Time's up. Yeah, we have to go to the judges for a decision, and the judges give the points to Zeus by like 1 point each.
So yeah, this is the Rocky ending. Rocky 1. Specifically
Yeah,
Rocky 1.
yeah, Rocky 1. After that, Rocky is like unbeatable and it's weird. I've never seen a Rocky movie, but like it's one of those things of like, everybody just knows Rocky. So Zeus wins like
on a technicality,
and the crowd starts booing, but the Stephanie McMahon chick comes out and she's like, yes, we are still undefeated, Zeus is the greatest, everybody knows we are the greatest.
But you can tell just on her facial expressions that the confidence is not there. Like, she's saying the words, our bot is undefeated, we knew we'd win, but it's not with any kind of confidence. The confidence of the team has been shattered.
But also, you brought up earlier that the kid was like, everybody knows you run the league and, all that kind of stuff. And she says at the end of the movie, like, we knew the judges would do the right thing. Like, you also got the idea that, like,
she paid off the judges. She owns the judges. She owns the league.
Yeah, I mean, she paid off the judges, and that bell rang at just the right time before the bot got knocked out. Like, you know what I mean?
And on top of this, we did skip over it. The designer of Zeus, who's been controlling him in this fight, saw the fight as beneath him, and he got taken to the limit. So his own confidence in his own superior technology is definitely shot as he just walks away from the fight. After they try to do the professional wrestler post match interview. It's like, yeah, your bot. There's supposed to be a humiliating defeat for you, and then he just walks away. The implication being that Adam should have won, and he was the underdog, come from behind. They even call him the People's Champion. Wonder if Dwayne Johnson was going to sue over that.
Yeah, I thought that too. It's like, I mean, it's not like Dwayne Johnson was the first person to ever come up with that. But
shout out Diamond Dallas Page.
I mean, neither was DDP, even though, yes, true. Shout out DDP. But, like, no offense, Dwayne Johnson does seem like the type of person that might open up a can of lawsuit.
Dwayne Johnson seems like the guy who would try to trademark the name People's Champion.
Yeah.
The man. Okay. To kind of sidetrack that, the guy had a belt made for himself that he came out at WrestleMania that said People's Championship.
Yeah.
So
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah. I mean, he seems
the
like
kind of guy that would try to trademark that.
Speaking of jabronis, the thing is that this does have the Rocky ending in the fact of, like, this is where the movie ends.
Yeah, it's the Rocky ending. He has, the underdog technically loses by decision, but he has the support of the fans. They're cheering and they're chanting his name. And that he won in all but an official capacity. Hence, the People's Champion thing was a little bit tacked on there to kind of emphasize it. I'm guessing that is to show that is for the, because this is a family movie, so you want to put that on for the kids.
For the kids.
Yeah. And you have that Rocky ending that, yeah, he really won, but he didn't win the title kind of deal. They even have the end of the movie being that the dad, Hugh Jackman puts his son on his shoulders, and Adam is mimicking mimicking the kid and raising his arms up. And our final shot of the movie is the kid on the Jumbotron with his arms in the air celebrating.
Okay. Yeah. it's kind of cool that the aunt and uncle are in the audience, and the aunt's like, yeah, kick his ass, But let's backtrack a second. This is supposed to be a movie about a father and son. The father was a deadbeat dad. He doesn't even know how old his son is when the movie starts. In fact, when the movie starts and the lawyer or court person or whoever shows up and is like, hey, Hugh Jackman, do you remember that ex-girlfriend you had? She's dead. And do you remember that you also had a kid? Hugh Jackman's first words about his kid are, what, is he dead too? Like, not, oh my god, is my son okay as well? Like, was there a car accident or something? Like, he's not worried for the safety of the kid. He just kind of flatly acts like, what is the kid dead to? And then they go, no, we're here to talk to you about the kid because, you are the father and the mother has now passed away and there is now a minor that needs, a parent. You idiot. Like, it doesn't even register in Hugh Jackman's head like, oh yeah, I have parental responsibilities here.
He is already willing and able to sign all of that away because he doesn't want to be a father.
Yeah, and he doesn't even want to see his child.
He goes to court and even questioning, do I even have to be here?
Yeah, couldn't I have phoned this in? Like, and they say, do you even want to see your child before you sign away parental rights to his aunt? And he's like, I mean, am I required to do that? So this whole movie is he agrees to take the kid off their hands so that the kind of scuzzy rich uncle can have his final child-free vacation to Italy with his wife and his friends.
Because the verbiage that he says is, my wife wants to adopt him, not we want to adopt him.
And it's the uncle that has money. You get the feeling, And the uncle wants to go on this trip to Italy with his new wife and all that, and his rich friends, and do, rich people adult things without children, And then he's like, okay, take him for 3 months and I'll pay you a bunch of money and then I'll let my wife adopt this child, And Hugh Jackman's like, well, I need money and I can put up with a kid for 3 months. And then he immediately tries to dump the kid on Evangeline Lilly until he finds out, like, oh, the kid is also into robot boxing and could be useful because he knows things about robots and how to robot box. And, okay, he could be useful to me. All right? So fast forward to the end of the movie, and he finally does the right thing by the child and realizes, like, I am putting this child in danger, because they threatened the kid, too, when they came after him and beat his ass in the alleyway. They grabbed the kid and almost beat the kid up.
Because they find out he's Hugh Jackman's son.
Yeah, and they're going to use him against him, And so in the first kind of selfless move he does in the movie, Hugh Jackman is like, okay, this child will be much safer away from me with his rich douchebag uncle and his aunt that actually cares for the child. She's a little bit flighty and a little bit weird, but she really does love the child, from what we can see.
Like, she is begging to take care of this kid. She does not want Hugh Jackman involved in this kid's life at all because he hasn't been.
Yeah, she knows what he's like.
Yeah.
And she has apparently been present in the child's life for his entire life. It seems that she was there.
That was her sister.
Yeah, and it seems that the kid knows her. And he's 11 years old. His mom just died. He's got a chip on his shoulder. You know, okay, let's take all that into account. Whatever. And now the aunt has married this, like, rich asshole, whatever.
It's even implied that there is a considerable age gap between the two.
Oh, yeah. And maybe the aunt just married him for his money or whatever, and she wants the money to take care of the kid, and, you know, we don't know what kind of situation either the aunt or the mom and the kid were in before, you know.
We don't even know how she died.
We don't know how she died. We don't know anything about how this kid was living up until the aunt married the rich dude, you know? And we know that right now the kid is cool with the trappings of wealth, even though he doesn't particularly like his uncle. He seems to be okay with his aunt. But the only reason he seems to want to stay with Hugh Jackman is that he's really digging being in robot fighting because he liked robot fighting before he was around Hugh Jackman, you know? He followed all the fights, he knew all the stats, he knew all the, you know? The thing is that Hugh Jackman finally takes the kid back to the aunt, who may be boring and may have married kind of an idiot husband, but she really does care for the kid and wants to keep the kid safe. You know, I was joking before, and I do think that just the way the scene is written, it kind of comes out of nowhere, and that's the screenwriter's fault. But in theory, you know, you should feel for the kid. And he is correct that, yes, the one thing you want is for your parent to feel like your parent is fighting for you and wants you around. But the thing is that he goes back for the fight, not necessarily, I mean, yeah, probably for his dad too, because you can tell that the kid genuinely wants to have a connection with his dad. At least in theory. Mm-hmm. But by the time we end the movie, what can you say Hugh Jackman has done to prove that he loves the kid that cannot be attributed equally to he loves robot fighting?
Not much, if anything.
You can look at all of his actions from the moment he drops the kid off with the aunt at the end of the movie. And you can say every one of those actions can be just as equally attributable to he wants to succeed in robot fighting. And he probably would have acted the same way had the kid not been there. Had Evangeline Lilly been standing next to him giving him advice, I think the movie would have played out the same way.
I think it still would have been like, he probably wouldn't have gotten very far. He definitely wouldn't be fighting against a world champion. Because he's, like you said, he's a button mashing noob. He doesn't want to learn. Maybe he would have learned if Evangeline Lilly had sat him down and say, hey, here's what your robot can do, and you need to train your robot like you would train, like my father trained you. And
I'm talking about from the moment he drops the kid back off.
Okay, from that point.
From that point, and the kid goes, I wanted you to fight for me. From that point, just that at that last fight scene in the movie, that resolution, quote unquote, tell me how that plays any differently with the kid there than him and Evangeline Lilly taking the robot and going to that final fight.
I mean, he still would have been a douchebag kind of scene in a way. In a way, yeah, I'm protecting my kid, but he wanted that connection. The kid wanted the connection that, he could have said, oh, hey, thanks for the title fight, and effed off. But in terms of the fight itself, I think you're right. Nothing would have changed.
But also, like, there's nothing kind of different in his relationship with the kid either, because the kid is, as far as we know, okay, because we never see past that, like, I've raised the kid on my shoulders at the end of the movie, which doesn't really mean much. That's just kind of what you do at the end of a fight, As far as we know, the kid is gonna leave that fight and go back to live with his aunt. We have no idea if that robot's ever gonna fight again. I guess Hugh Jackman's gonna take whatever second place prize he, like, maybe Evangeline Lilly, like, bet on him to lose and she just made a lot of money. I don't know. It makes it out to be like, yeah, everything's great now because the father and son are together, except they're not. There's no stakes riding on that final scene, except that his aunt and uncle let him come to that fight. Like, the kid goes back with his aunt and uncle, probably. Maybe Hugh Jackman comes over for Christmas every year and, like, sends him birthday gifts now or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's more contact than they had before, but
I don't know. Like, Ken, the movie, and it's, like I said, it's the Rocky ending. As soon as the fight is over, the movie ends. We never get that resolution.
But the Rocky ending, Rocky achieved something in the Rocky ending. Yeah, he didn't win the fight, but you know that Rocky achieved something. I'm having trouble figuring out what these two achieved.
That a robot from the junkyard could be a champion, but that's kind of not the story this movie wants to tell. The movie wants to tell the story of the father and son.
And the only reason they lose is because in the original story, the guy loses. But the guy loses for a very specific reason in the original story.
Because it's a human fighting a robot, literally.
Yeah, because a robot punching your skull in with the force of a robot is gonna smash your skull. Like, you will be lucky to survive that, which was the point of the story. They needed, like, one extra scene or something to wrap up, like, where do these two go after this? But
if we had gotten, like, a scene and it would have said 4 months later and it's Thanksgiving and it's the aunt and uncle and the kid and Hugh Jackman and Evangeline Lilly, and there's Adam in the background charging up, having a dinner together, we could see that, okay, he's still a part of his kid's life and stuff like that.
Yeah, and maybe he's moved on to, like, train other people or something. I don't know.
He could be a robot fight trainer.
Yeah, something. I'm still wondering, like, what they thought the point of the end of this was, and still, apparently, during their press junket for Deadpool and Wolverine, Hugh Jackman and Sean Levy were still talking about how they want to do a sequel to this movie.
This is 2011, it's 2024, it's been 14 years. I understand that they have an idea and they wanted to do it, but
I mean, find somebody to be like the adult kid of Hugh Jackman and, talk about what happened in the intervening years or whatever, but
like the movie didn't exactly bomb in theaters, but it really wasn't a worldwide success either. Wanting to do this movie as a passion project, I get. And I think the real reason there never was a sequel for this movie is because of its production. Like I said at the beginning, this is a co-production of Disney and DreamWorks. In the ensuing 14 years since this movie has been made, DreamWorks has been bought by Universal. So that would require Disney and Universal to work together to make Real Steel 2. They couldn't even get together to make a Hulk movie.
Yeah.
You really think they're gonna... And they couldn't make Hulk 2. The two could not come together to make that happen. You really think they're gonna make Real Steel 2? Those two studios coming together? I don't think so.
And an MCU Hulk movie would have made bank.
Yeah, but because the two studios couldn't work together, never happened.
Yeah.
They're not going to get together for Real Steel 2.
Which, as much as I love Hugh Jackman, and honestly, as much as I like Sean Levy as director, I think this is the first movie that we've talked about on the show, or even talked about privately, of his that we didn't like.
This movie, I did. I saw this movie in the theaters and I liked it. To ask the question.
I think this movie, let's just say that this is the movie of his we've had the most problems with.
I'll agree with that.
Okay.
Because even Night at the Museum, we there was something there,
Yeah.
And we both love Free Guy.
Oh, love Free Guy. And I don't know if you ever saw The Adam Project, but I know it didn't because it came out on Netflix, but I liked The Adam Project enough.
And I think it's just the tones changing. Like you said, it was a different writer. It was script written one way and rewritten to be a family film. And based off the original story, a lot gets lost in translation. But I did enjoy the movie. This was the first time I've seen the movie since it was in theaters. I have not seen this movie in 14 years. So coming back to this movie, I did actually enjoy watching the movie. So again, to ask the question, I will say the movie has magic, but it's not a perfect movie. It has its problems. And yeah, and like I said, the fact that this is two different studios coming together to make this movie, we'll likely never see anything else from this movie ever again. I'll ask you the question. I assume does this movie have the magic?
This one's such a complex one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can see where there is magic buried in this movie, but I think it's buried under too much. So I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna put the blame entirely on the script.
Mm-hmm. I understand that.
I love the direction. I love the production design. I like every actor that is in this film. I mean, it's such an annoying film to me because I like every part of this movie except the script.
And yeah, I would love to see that original script before it got rewritten. You know, there are those YouTube channels that go into, you know, what the original version of a movie would have been. We've shout out a few of them on the podcast. If one of them were able to get their hands on the original Real Steel script.
Oh man, if one of them were able to get me a copy of this script, I would so much love to be on any of those channels as a special guest to talk about what this, because I am such a Richard Matheson fan. I am a fan of everybody involved in the production of this film except apparently the screenwriter.
I don't know, the screenwriter's on thin ice with me for writing that freaking Power Rangers movie.
Did you like that Power Rangers movie, the 2017 one?
I've never seen it. I refuse to see it.
I mean, I've only ever seen clips of it, and every clip I've seen of that movie makes me want to punch things. So
that's why I've never seen it.
Same here. So
it goes so against what the TV show is that I couldn't bring myself to watch it.
I have a feeling that John Gattens may be the person who might not understand the point of things.
Maybe.
Like, did not understand the point of Power Rangers, did not understand the point of the short story Steel. I kind of want to get a hold of his original story for Kong Skull Island, because Kong Skull Island ended up being an amazing both movie about King Kong and also a really interesting movie about the horrors of Vietnam. I kind of feel like whatever that original script was, it might have been one of the goofiest things. And now I'm just curious.
So I think that's all we can say on Real Steel. Mixed bag, at best, we'll say.
Yeah.
So let's move on to next week. AI Month continues with Blue Sky's Robots. I mentioned him before. We're going to be talking about Robin Williams next week. So that's always a good thing to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's talk. We'll be talking more robots, more AI. So come back next week for robots, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye. Don't let the magic stop here. Join our conversations on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic. We are on the X formerly known as Twitter at Rewatch the Magic. And new episodes are available every week at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com. Remember, the magic is for everyone. It only stops if you let it. Podcasts are fun,
but there's work to be done.
We encourage you to get involved. Here are some organizations we support.
The American Civil Liberties Union fights for the constitutional rights of all Americans. Find them at aclu.org.
The National Network of Abortion Funds helps people find access to safe abortion services. Their site is abortionfunds.org.
The Trevor Project provides a 24/7 crisis helpline for LGBTQ youth and education services for schools on LGBTQ issues. They can be found at thetrevorproject.org.
Or find a way to help in your area.